And I know this is our debut, but this ain't a debut.
Love me once, I know you'll love me twice. Love me once, it's time to roll the dice.
Hello class. All right, I'm obsessed with Katseye and frankly, I'm tired of being quiet about it. In July of 2024, I was on TikTok watching, I don't know, probably like coconut tree edits or something. It was kind of a weird summer when all of a sudden I saw this clip on my feed from KCON, the annual K-pop music festival in Los Angeles.
Cause you've been so out of touch. You could've had my love, but you've been so out of touch.
To be honest, I had been sober from K-pop for a few years at that point, so I really don't know why I lingered, but I am so glad I did because hold on, what is that sweet melody? And more importantly, is this actual diversity in a K-pop group? It's like watching real-life Bratz dolls perform, and I didn't even realize at the time that this was their first public performance ever.
So here comes some good advice. If I ever call again, don't press it on.
All right, Katseye, you got me. I'll learn every minute detail of your lore and watch every available fan cam. I mean, if I have to, I guess. And I know y'all are begging to know who my bias is, and I couldn't possibly pick. They're all so great. It's Laura.
Makes you seem close tonight.
Voice of an angel. And she's only using 1/10 of her vocal ability in Katseye. Let Laura sing. I also just realized I'm literally cutting her off out of the shot. I'm so sorry, that's not right. I truly have to thank these girls for finally letting a girl group even come close to breaking the mainstream in the US. I don't think I have to tell you that we have been starved of girl group content over here. Is it too much to ask that women surf in a V formation with a headset microphone? I don't want to horrify you, but it's been almost a decade since Fifth Harmony last performed in the back of a local 7-Eleven or Best Buy parking lot. And we simply did not treasure them enough when we had them. Ever since the breakout success of Olivia Rodrigo, Billie Eilish, the world domination of Taylor Swift, there has been this real push for what I would call authentic sad girl shit. We need a slow, tragic ballad that also gives the complete lore of your last breakup with MLA formatted citations. And don't get me wrong, I love some sad girl shit. I absolutely think Guts was snubbed at the Grammys. But like, if we're gonna live under fascism, can we at least have a fun beat to dance to every once in a while? But in the world of K-pop, it's a completely different story. You want to see some people perform a synchronized dance in coordinated cute outfits, all while singing live and serving face? Boy, is this the place for you. Just maybe don't ask who any of the male idols voted for in the last election. No one does it better than the K-pop girlies, and it has been this way since Gen 1. I remember when I first discovered K-pop.
Oppan Gangnam Style.
I mean, it was Gangnam Style like everybody else, but that wasn't really what got me into the genre. It was one fateful day in 2013, my friend David, shout out David, I don't know where you are, we were supposed to be working on a group project, and instead he showed me Bar 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 by Crayon Pop. Just 5 girls jumping around with helmets on. We don't get concepts like this anymore. Please, 5th gen, listen. Needless to say, I was in love, and I had to hear more, and I did.
We had Girls' Generation, 21, Big Bang, Red Velvet, Twice, like all of them. They all slay.
I even listened to this random boy group who initially had started out as this sort of indie hip-hop rap group before rebranding to EDM pop. Oh, you discovered BTS when they made Dynamite? A song they don't even like? I'll have you know, I was thinking about Jimin's forehead when they had just a mere 5 million views on YouTube. Does that make me better than you? I mean, speaking of BTS, have y'all heard that they are all finished with their military service? This calls for a celebration. This makes me want to have, I don't know, like a hassle-free, delicious, home-cooked meal that was delivered straight to my doorstep. And luckily, I have all that taken care of with today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Y'all, I have been using HelloFresh for a few years now, and I cannot tell you the difference it makes in my life when I don't have to spend all my time shopping, planning recipes, because I usually don't. I just end up making buttered toast and calling it a day. What I personally love about HelloFresh is it just gets me out of that really stale routine I fall into when I am cooking at home, where it's just like plain roasted veggies, plain rice, some tofu, and like a lot of sauce to make it seem like I actually did anything. HelloFresh actually gets me in the habit of cooking actual healthy meals for myself. And right now you can take advantage of an incredible deal HelloFresh is offering by using my code AshleyNortonFM for 10 free meals and free add-ons for life. That's one free item with every box with an active subscription. These free meals are applied as a discount on the first box for new subscribers only, varies by plan. You definitely don't want to miss out on this. Sign up today, click the link below, or use my code AshleyNortonFM. Thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. Even though groups like BTS and Blackpink both managed to reach the top of the Hot 100, K-pop has slowly been dropping off in the US market since around 2023. Don't get me wrong, there's still a huge sect of Americans who go nuts for the photo cards, the light sticks, but K-pop is still seen largely as a niche separate from Western pop, rather than a dominating force within the Western music industry itself. But could you imagine the power if a group pulled from the visuals, the desire for authenticity, driving Western music, with the power of a K-pop performance and K-pop marketing to have an international fan base, maybe even separate from K-pop fans? Oh, we could monetize that. And that's why HYBE, the label behind BTS, and Interscope Geffen came together to free us from the girl group drought and only exploit a few dozen teenage girls along the way. First of all, the fact that HYBE was the one who wanted to make the first global girl group is so funny to me, given HYBE's absolutely cursed history with K-pop girl groups. HYBE's first girl group, Glam, got disbanded in 2014 because one of the members got caught blackmailing Lee Byung-hun, the guy from Squid Games, because he just so happened to be having an affair with one of her friends, and so she blackmailed him for millions of dollars. God forbid a girl have hobbies. After that, HYBE just straight up dismissed all of their female trainees. They didn't bother managing girl groups again until 2022 with LE SSERAFIM, only for LE SSERAFIM to immediately get caught in a scandal over middle school bullying allegations. Justice for Garam, I'm still thinking about that. New Jeans versus Islet, literally the girl so confusing of the K-pop world. But despite HYBE girl groups literally never catching a break, they are still some of the most popular groups, particularly when it comes to international fans, which is just the demographic they were looking to break into with this new global girl group. And we simply cannot talk about Katseye without first talking about Dream Academy.
Dream Academy.
For those who aren't familiar, there is a reason K-pop groups are so polished, why each member of the group is perfectly curated with distinct personalities, looks, and strengths. And that is all because of the K-pop method. In Korea, every year, thousands of boys and girls audition for companies in the hopes that they'll be signed as a trainee. The biggest companies are JYP, SM, YG, and nowadays Big Hit / HYBE, with countless other smaller companies also operating within this system. Once a trainee is selected, they work on a relentless schedule, building their singing, their dancing, and their performance abilities, typically all unpaid because this is more so viewed as you being a student of their program rather than you being an actual employee. On top of that, particularly with smaller companies, you often owe a debt to the label for all of the expenses they fronted when they were training you. Now, you don't owe that debt if you don't end up making a group, but if you do manage to be one of the few who make it to debut, it may be months or years before you actually see profit from your work. This training process takes years for most, which is why Korean companies tend to scout minors who are still balancing schoolwork on top of the company's program. Even 16-year-olds are at a disadvantage in the audition process because the industry just favors going public between the ages of 16 to 21 at the most, and that's not counting the 2 to even 10 years some successful idols will have spent training. Trainees are given monthly evaluations where they are ranked against one each other for maximum psychological damage, and the overwhelming majority of trainees get dropped from the program and don't end up debuting. With South Korea also being the plastic surgery capital of the world, as well as just valuing very thin, pale people, trainees may also undergo a variety of treatments, procedures, diets, all to better adhere to the Korean beauty standard. It's also a lot of white paint, like a lot of white paint. As you might have guessed, this system is not without criticism, After all, this is a system largely built off the backs of teenagers, training for, on average, 8 to 10 hours a day on top of any schoolwork they have. Rest also isn't often prioritized in the schedule, so injuries are commonplace. Many ex-idols have spoken about the harsh feedback they received, not just about their abilities, but their looks and their work ethic. Although I will say, while this form of exploitation is probably the most formalized and publicized in the K-pop industry, it is not remotely unique to just this one industry or just Korea.
You guys didn't get your share of the art. And I mean, can you correct me if I'm wrong? Like, when those songs play, do you get any royalty? Is the answer no?
I mean, like, it's not gonna pay my rent.
No. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the reality is those songs are making somebody a lot of fucking money.
I mean, of course, they're hit songs.
Korea as a whole does value a strong work ethic and an intense drive for productivity. And even though, say, Americans are much more appreciative of a work-life balance, when you can't afford your groceries or your healthcare, you may not be afforded that option. US music labels don't have a formal trainee system like this, but an American artist similarly may have little control of their image, work incredibly hard, and not really see profits from their work for years because, like K-pop companies, Western labels also want to recoup the cost of marketing, producing the music, touring. So what would actually happen if teenage girls from not just America, but from all over the world trained under the K-pop methodology? In the fall of 2021, HYBE and Geffen began online and open casting calls for girls aged 15 to 19 to be a part of this first global girl group. Out of thousands of auditions, 12 girls began virtually training with singing and dance instructors. 10 of those girls moved out to LA to begin what would become 2 years of training in total secret. Which, can you imagine being Sophia's friend in the Philippines? Like, Sophia went to college for the first 2 months and then just moved to the other side of the world with no explanation for 2 whole years? That's like the equivalent of 10 seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race. As the program goes on, HYBE continues with the open auditions, adding more girls to the program. Meanwhile, the girls that are there are training from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with vocal and dance lessons.
We're gonna have classes since 8 till 8.
Oh, wow.
You know? It's gonna be, and then Sid told me, don't worry, it's not gonna be like a whole day. You're gonna have breaks, 30 minutes to have lunch.
On top of that, the girls are also encouraged to come in early, continue practicing on the weekends. In the documentary that filmed this entire process, you can see this one clip where all of the girls are scrambling to reserve practice rooms like they're trying to get tickets to the Eras tour.
Oh my god, not my laptop hanging. I have to do it on my phone. Where's my phone? Okay. No, they're already filling it up. Okay.
After all, they're not just evaluated and ranked based on their dancing or singing. They're also evaluated based on this intangible star power and their attitude throughout the whole process.
I would rather have someone whose lower skill set shows up here every day, like early, wants to be here, is putting in extra time after, just because that drive, okay, we can work with that.
When all of the girls around you are incredibly talented, you can differentiate yourself by never breaking a sweat, never complaining, and volunteering all of your free time to perfect your cover of Havana by Camila Cabello. Of course, in the documentary, they are also very careful to emphasize that this training and development period was entirely voluntary, and the minors, of course, could only stay for a certain amount of time. But nothing in the California Labor Code says anything about a child volunteering their free time completely of their own accord, and the girls who were adults simply had no excuse. But after HYBE has exhausted the open auditions, they move on to individually scouting girls through TikTok and Instagram. Nothing will ever beat the absolute aura that was Lara's introduction to the program.
Anybody could be that final member that we need.
That could be the death of us, the death of us, baby.
The execs at HYBE were shaken in their boots when they saw Miss Lara because her main feedback throughout the program was that she needed to tone herself down. God forbid a brown girl with insane vocals just stand out. I guess they just wanted Lara to give the other girls even a fighting chance. Even though Lara quickly became one of the top vocal trainees, she had no experience in dance or singing within a group, so she too had to work round the clock to catch up to the rest of the group. Of the trainees, there was one girl who always stood out from the rest.
When I first saw her, I instantly knew this girl's already a star.
I have a gut feeling I'm gonna be in the group.
Manon Bannerman is a 22-year-old Ghanaian and Swiss model. If she looks vaguely familiar to you, you are most definitely in the depth of a depressive episode scrolling through alt TikTok in 2020-2021, because Manon ran alt TikTok like the Navy. She went viral on Pinterest and Instagram for her face card alone. I just know her tote bag collection goes crazy. She has this unchecked star power, which I don't think just comes solely from how she looks. At the beginning of the video, I said I didn't know why I chose to watch Katseye's first performance when I had no idea who they were, but I'm pretty sure it was just Manon. Manon's visuals just seem to perfectly fit the concept of the group. And that wasn't just me, by the way. I've seen countless comments claiming people initially found the group because of Manon. Manon was already one of the most followed girls on Instagram because of her previous influencer content, but her fan cam since her debut showed that she was consistently an early fan favorite of the group. Knowing all that, it's not shocking that the moment a Hybe casting director found her on Instagram, she immediately went to Manon's DMs. Unlike pretty much all of the girls who were cast in the program, Manon had absolutely no formal training. Even though she had written a lot of songs and had a really unique vocal tone, she didn't have a lot of fundamental things down like breath work. And when it came to things like dancing, she was essentially starting from scratch. And we're just talking basic training. She had never done anything anywhere near the insane levels of work the K-pop method demanded. But Manon was, at least as far as we know, the only trainee to receive a private trainer who worked with her in Germany before she joined the rest of the girls in LA, which seems like a pretty immediate indicator of just how much the execs wanted Manon for the group. Were they wrong? No. But once Manon gets to LA, the difference between her and the rest of the group becomes apparent pretty quickly. Like I said, she's not the strongest dancer or the strongest singer, but she's also not so far behind a lot of the girls who are there. It wasn't her skill set that necessarily set her apart from the rest. It was, to me at least, entirely about her apparent lack of suffering for this program.
A lot of us specifically have been here from the start and we've worked really, really hard. So sometimes it just feels like a little slap in the face.
Emily, one of the most skilled dancers in Dream Academy, immediately after reaching the highest level of dance the program offered, got a stress fracture on her foot. This wasn't something sudden, it was something that built up over time with the months of endless practice. Lexi got a similar hip injury, which was so severe she not only needed surgery, according to her, she was never able to dance at the same level again. These young girls, teenage girls, were doing permanent damage to their bodies, all for the chance to be an idol. Meanwhile, Manon would do crazy things like take days off to recover.
Yes, I've missed practice and rehearsals. I missed rehearsals because I was sick, or I used to get really sore. I looked at this school where, taking a day off is okay. I realized real quick that that is not the case.
Which, could you believe, meant that she didn't get seriously injured? But it wasn't just that. Initially, she didn't take the rules as seriously as the other girls. She would be late to practice or curfew at the trainee house, to the point where she was kicked out of the trainee house and ended up staying with her aunt in LA, separate from the rest of the girls. Yes, she did get told off for missing classes, but her punishment was her getting to live with her wealthy aunt and sleep in her own bed, when most of the other trainees were the furthest they'd been ever from their family in their whole lives.
Our schedule is so booked and busy right now. For me, having family dinners was really good for me, and just sleeping in my own bed and getting a good night rest.
But from Manon's perspective at that time, none of this was that deep. For one, she had no idea just what the K-pop methodology was. Manon is from Switzerland. All right, I lived in Germany. You so much as cough and you were fully expected to stay home and rest for a full week. Manon didn't walk into this program thinking practicing to the point of permanent injury was a requirement. After all, as much as the company stressed the monthly evaluations, to Manon it was pretty apparent that being ranked #1 in dance, #1 in singing, #1 in star quality wasn't what was actually going to get you into the group. It was skill, yes, but also so many other qualities and factors completely beyond the trainee's control. Let's be so serious for a second. Hybe does not send out a private trainer for someone who isn't going to be in the group. I know it, you know it, and Manon most definitely knew that. To her, her missed days were her taking care of herself, combined with the time that she was actually sick with COVID. As long as she trained enough, she was going to be in the group, so why sacrifice your well-being when you could just not do that. It's like that person in school who says they never study for the test and still managed to get an A. Are you annoyed at that person? Yeah. But deep down, you're also probably just annoyed that it took you countless hours to get anywhere near the same result. But the thing is, even though Manon was scouted, she consistently ranked in the bottom 3 out of 20 girls in the overall evaluation. Meanwhile, people like Megan, Sophia, Adela, girls who had been there since the beginning and were consistently bringing it all, were all ranking in the top. Yeah, Manon seemed to maybe get more of a pass than the other girls, but to the girls, if the evaluations were any indication, the execs weren't actually considering Manon for the group, so what was there to fight about? What the girls didn't know, however, was that behind all of their backs, the execs had been secretly preparing for a survival show where a huge factor in whether they got into the group or not was how much they were liked by the public.
The trainees are anticipating going public, but they don't know, we know, that it's through a survival show.
Survival shows are a huge subsect of the K-pop industry. They have a very similar format to shows like American Idol, X Factor, where contestants are slowly eliminated over the season as they participate in various challenges that show off their skills, with the winners of the shows becoming a new K-pop group. It is a bit different from American shows in that K-pop survival shows almost always start with an absurd number of contestants, like 200 plus contestants in the first episode. The contestants are usually already trainees, either from the company that's running the show or smaller companies that are related to the show. Episodes are over 2 hours long, and a lot of them will just have things like random sports day episodes in the middle, which have absolutely no bearing on the competition whatsoever. It's a lot of vibes. A lot of vibes on K-pop survival shows. I was actually going to include a whole bit on the K-pop survival shows I've been watching recently because I do have a lot of thoughts, but one, we simply don't have time, and two, I fear that may be just a little bit too Koreaboo of me to do. The short of it is, it's an easy way to get fans invested in groups that they might not have paid attention to otherwise because they feel like they've been cheering them on in their careers from the beginning. It's how we got groups like Twice and Hypen, Islet. Even trainees who don't win a survival show often end up debuting in other groups, like Chaeryeong, who competed to be in Twice but later debuted under the same company with ITZY. Not surprisingly, in this Hybe Geffen trainee program, a lot of girls who had auditioned were already big K-pop fans, and a few of them suspected that that's what they were actually here for. But to any of the girls who asked that question directly, asked if they were being prepared for a survival show, they were just straight up lied to. And no, we will not tell you how or when we're going to pick the girl group, so just keep dancing to Break Free by Ariana Grande, goddammit.
It's funny because when I got into this, I kept asking like, this isn't a survival show, right? And they were like, no.
And some of you might say, well, they always knew that not everybody was going to make it. Is public voting being a factor, not even the sole factor, that big of a difference at the end of the day? The answer is yes. And frankly, I'm offended at the question.
From the start, we didn't know this was a survival show. It was supposed to be training, pick the girls, prepare for debut and debut.
First, because they were working towards a survival show, they needed at least 20 girls competing, which meant they needed to cast even more girls to join just 2 to 4 months before the survival show began. Some of them included 2 K-pop trainees, 15-year-old VCHA, who had been training for 2 years at that point, and 21-year-old Nayoung, a former SM Entertainment trainee who had competed on several Korean survival shows and singing competitions. All things considered, those two had a fairly decent chance at making the group with their experience, even if they were being brought in last minute. But other contestants like Celeste, who said she never received positive feedback in her training period at all, or Hinari, a 14-year-old girl who only had 2 months to train, absolutely felt like cannon fodder kept on reserve for their precious survival show.
早く吸収するように頑張る必要があるなっていうふうに思ってます。まだその経験が浅くて入ったばかりで皆さんに迷惑をかけちゃっていて。
For the girls who had been there much longer, like Daniela or Carly, even if they weren't comfortable with the unexpected survival show format, the mindset at the time was this has already been over a year of your life. And when you're a teenager, that's not a small thing. So why walk away when the carrot they've been dangling in front of you for so long seems like it's finally within reach? The survival show also made it explicit that only 6 of the 20 would debut in the final group. Before, monthly evaluations were tests that you could pass, that maybe all of your friends could pass, but now you were in direct competition with one another. And the cherry on top of all the new unexpected public scrutiny and ramped up training, is that now if you get sent home, you weren't granted a private meeting with the trainers who had supported you every day. Instead, you were told via an AI voice on the TV your teacher drags in when they have a hangover in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Adela and Hanari will not be joining us in Korea. Thank you for your unwavering hard work and boundless passion.
It's like the time The Bachelor got COVID and had to send girls home via Zoom. I would just never recover. I'm an adult and I would never recover. But most importantly, your fate was now largely in the hands of the public, who had no idea how you ranked in training, how long you'd been there. They just saw what country you were from, what you looked like. And often they only saw a fraction of your actual skill.
I feel like the public have already chosen who they truly want in this, and it makes me feel like I have a chance.
See, what's normally fun about survival shows is that it's not just about watching them perform. You get to hear a lot of their backstories. You see how the trainees bond with each other as they prepare for challenges, what their personalities are like. And they could have shown that in Dream Academy, the survival show. But the issue is, they had already signed a deal for a Netflix documentary, so actually, let's paywall the content that actually humanizes the girls and not release it until long after the group had already been picked, and instead post maybe 5 minutes of their prep for each challenge and a TikTok dance if you're lucky. For Dream Academy clearly being such a high-budget survival show, it's actually kind of crazy how bad it is as like a standalone thing. That is especially apparent in my opinion for Mission 1, where the girls were split into 4 teams. 2 groups would be doing a singing cover, and the other 2 groups would be doing a dance cover. Now, I don't think it's weird that they start off with showcasing just singing and just dancing before showing how they sing and dance together. That's pretty normal. But I don't know why they didn't have each team sing and then have each team dance. Because a sung cover is just always going to be more engaging than a dance cover, at least to a general audience. It's just way more obvious to a lay person how you're making the song your own. And I think generally speaking, fans just care more about vocals than they do dancing. But also, I think one of the dancing teams just got especially done dirty because they just had a bad song to perform to. One of the groups did OMG by New Jeans. Incredible song. Pop perfection. I don't think it's like the hardest dance in the world, but there are lots of small details in the footwork and there's changes in pace. But then the other group got Pink Venom by Blackpink. And this is nothing against the song. I think it's fine. Okay, I'm actually not that into Blackpink. But to me, Pink Venom just seems like way simpler, less interesting choreography. And granted, I'm not a dancer, so it may be one of those things where it looks easy, but it's actually hard. But most people who are watching this also aren't dancers. So I think they're just gonna be less inclined to be impressed by the choreo. It also just seems like the choreo for Pink Venom was made to emphasize the original Blackpink members singing and rapping, rather than the choreography being the star of the performance itself. It also doesn't help that the styling for this dance cover is by far the worst out of the 4 groups. Their outfits all look like they were snagged right off of Forever 21 bankruptcy clearance rack. Like, those details shouldn't matter. But of course they do anyways. But the real problem is only one of these covers actually got the views and engagement that Hybe had expected. That was Still Into You, which also happened to have the 3 top vocalists in the entire program. So of course that group was going to do better. So because we only had these very short performances, and only one of those performances actually grabbed the audience's attention, the fan voting in the first mission especially became much more about other factors. Like Emily saying "Hey y'all" in her introduction, you would think that poor girl came out as a Benson Boone fan the way she was crucified for that.
People just like went in on the fact that I said, "Hey, what's up y'all?" And they were like, why would she say that? So stupid.
What's so wrong with saying "Hey y'all"? She's from Texas. That's like sink found in kitchen. To start off, Dream Academy made this 10-minute intro sequence, which I think is supposed to give dream vibes because, you know, Dream Academy. But it's like a NyQuil dream. Hide and seek, ballerinas, giant blazers, giant mattresses, Manon eating in the hallway. So much vitamin water. And even though every girl is featured, certain girls, like Sophia and Manon especially, are given much more screen time. By the way, this is not me complaining. Manon had the best outfit. It wasn't even close. Even though we didn't see her sing or dance in that preview, she grabbed everyone's attention, and first impressions like that do matter. The girls who are featured heavily in the marketing were always going to perform better than the ones in the background. Bang, the CEO of Hybe, At least he's the CEO now. Is he getting arrested for insider trading or something? I don't know what's going on with that. Bang said himself that he wanted the show to feel like the Olympics, and because of that, when each girl introduced themselves to the public, on top of stating their name, their age, they also named which countries they were from. And many contestants introduced themselves in their native language as well as English.
Hi, my name is Iliya. I'm 21 years old and I'm from Belarus. Привітання, меня зовут Iliya, мне 21 год и я с Беларуси.
This being a K-pop adjacent project, amongst international fans, there has been this strong push for diversity in the K-pop industry. Although the number of non-Korean idols have definitely gone way up, there is still a pretty rigid K-pop beauty standard that they have to adhere to. And this is also a competition set in the United States. There is no shortage of American pop artists here. This was the chance to see cultures, ethnicities, skin tones that aren't represented in America or K-pop, given the opportunities that they've historically been denied. Not to mention that there are certain cultures which just have a bigger sense of national pride. Some cultures are more invested in music fandom than others. Like that picture of Lady Gaga's concert in Brazil. That is incredible. This sounds weird to say, because to be clear, I don't see this as like a generalizable phenomenon, very specific to this competition. But in this competition, particularly with the American girls, white privilege kind of acted as a double-edged sword. I know, won't someone please think of us white women? In one of the Dream Academy vlogs, Brooklyn said that she was frustrated because she felt like the American girls weren't getting as much love and attention as some of the other trainees.
And I think it's hard, like, I think it's a beautiful thing, but I also think it's a really hard thing with the countries. Because there's some countries, like, that really back up their people.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for, like, us Americans because I feel like compared to some of the other countries, it's like the love that they're getting is beautiful and it's amazing, but for us, we don't get as much as that, and I think it's hard sometimes to see somebody getting a lot of love and not getting that.
And to be clear, she said this during the second mission, where Americans like Lara, Megan, all placed in the top 10, whereas Emily and Brooklyn did not get that same attention, with Emily in 13th and Brooklyn in 17th. I think what Brooklyn is really lamenting here that she maybe can't say out loud is that she's frustrated that her nationality and ethnicity isn't getting her a loyal fan base. Samara, Celeste, Sophia, Latin American and Filipino contestants respectively received so much online support, often with the sentiment that they were representing their countries like they were an Olympic athlete.
Right now, I feel like this project has been so good to me. It's kind of like the Olympics where somebody's voting because of their country. Like I come from the Philippines and they're so proud of me right now.
I firmly believe that all three of those girls would have ranked high regardless of where they were from. Sophia especially ranked first in over 60 countries at the end of the competition. Samara had some of the best vocals in the entire program. Celeste had a unique tone and look that just stood out from the rest of the girls. But a not insignificant part of the drive to support these girls was, yes, because they came from cultures that are so often ignored in both Western and Korean media. And I don't think that's a bad thing in itself. Despite the Philippines being known for having so many insanely talented singers, HYBE did not have a Filipino idol before Sophia. So when people from these less represented cultures see someone like them in front of a global audience, there is a loyalty there. It's like seeing a part of your own culture, and by extension, yourself on that stage. In America, as white women, we have always been able to see ourselves in whatever media format we desire. So there's not that same loyalty because the stakes of that representation just isn't comparable. Ultimately, though, what Brooklyn's comment ignores is how her whiteness, even in this setting, still works in her favor. She doesn't experience discrimination or isolation based on her skin color. Laura got hundreds of comments saying that she seemed mean or had a mean face, and you just cannot tell me that isn't just because she had strong Indian features. Brooklyn doesn't have the identity struggles that especially the multiracial girls or the white Latina girls struggled with.
It just feels like shit. Like you just, want to prove yourself to the world and to the fans, to social media that you are talented. I'm still getting comments about me not being Latina on social media.
she isn't constantly told that she's just doing well in the votes because her culture is supporting her, like Samara and Sophia, who, despite, again, being popular across countries, were accused of being carried solely because of their nationality. And even though national loyalty did play a role, I think especially in the first mission, Brooklyn being towards the bottom of the public votes was not drastically out of line with her ranking and training, which yes, are not objective either, but people's strength as performers was still the primary determinant of who got the most votes. I mean, everyone in the Dream Academy was talented to start off with. So when the votes began rolling in for Mission 1, a lot of the results were consistent with previous evaluations. People like Nayoung, Lara, Sophia, Samara, who consistently ranked high in vocal evaluations, were right at the top. But other results were drastically different from what the execs had predicted. Emily, the #1 dancer in the program and the only dancer to graduate to Class A, placed only 14th despite being the center of her group's performance. Daniela, the second best dancer, was 17th, and you just can't tell me that that isn't partly because the outfit they put her in was terrible. Adela, who was not only ranked in the top 3 in dance, but also in overall performance, was in dead last. Meanwhile, Manon, who was 19th in the last monthly evaluation, shot up to the 4th spot despite having only one line in her singing performance and being sick with COVID at the time she was performing.
Seeing us numbered feels so wrong, you know what I mean? It feels icky, especially with Adela. There's nobody in this program that works harder than her. To see her be at the absolute bottom, it's ridiculous. It's a joke. And then to see people who don't show up be at the top, it's just stupid. It's not based on how talented you are, things that actually matter. It's just based on how pretty you are.
It seems like the tension that had kind of been laying under the surface between some of the other girls and Manon came to a head.
This keeps happening over and over again with Manon. And there's people that just came and never danced before just like her, but they are here every single rehearsal, putting in extra work.
Netflix filmed a group therapy session with all of the contestants, which should immediately raise some red flags to you. Manon is not at this therapy session because she still has COVID at this point, but in that session, the girls are venting some of their very valid frustrations with the sudden shift to public voting and criticism. Daniela voices that she feels like the Americans aren't getting as much attention, which starts a conversation that is still the subject of Twitter discourse to this day.
The Americans experience what, a Slovak would experience all the time. We don't ever get represented, ever.
Adela says that the Americans are experiencing what she, as a Slovak, experiences every day, that they just don't get that representation or attention. Now, this statement can seem kind of tone deaf, because yes, Adela is from a small country, but she is still a white woman who is not burdened by racism like many of the contestants here, including American women of color who are competing with her. I do think she is speaking in general to what we talked about earlier, that even if Slovakians want that representation, their population is just a fraction of the world compared to other nationalities represented in Dream Academy. I don't think there's one way to look at what Adela is saying. Then the conversation turns to Manon.
Manon, she's getting so much attention. People are upset because she doesn't put a lot of effort and she doesn't show up for her teams a lot. And so people are upset that she is the person who's getting so much attention. It's not based on anything right now. It's just because she's pretty, and that's true. She is pretty.
Adela was not the only one in the group to air the sentiment, although she did probably voice it the most frequently in the documentary.
Manon clearly knows about it because she's literally spoken to me saying that she's upset that we're saying things and all that, but why are you upset that we're frustrated at you, when it's you're doing, and we told you that we're upset? And this just has been going on since the month that she came here.
As I mentioned, Manon did miss practices during training and development. Hybe never specified just how much that was, which I do think is fairly important context. And most of the time, that didn't impact the other girls. It was just Manon making a choice for herself. However, there were times where Manon was set to be in a group performance for evaluation, and because she wasn't always consistent with showing up to practice, the girls on her team had to practice the choreography without her, at first still assuming that she would join the group eventually, but then finding out she was cut from the choreography altogether. So then they had to completely rework the positions and everything with that smaller group.
As a team, you want to trust people, and a lot of us still haven't built that trust in her, even though we've been training for a really long time, because She never came to rehearsals.
As a teenage girl especially, it's pretty easy to see why you'd be frustrated that Manon got so much public attention, especially when people you see as hardworking didn't get that same recognition. I don't think the girls were wrong to be frustrated, and I don't think it's fair that girls like Adela still get called bullies to this day, when the comments that she made were frustrations she voiced in an absolute pressure cooker.
But also, just because I can see why the girls would have been frustrated with Manon, it is still so heartbreaking to watch this documentary and see Manon be so sweet, literally to everybody around her. Because she didn't live in the house with everybody else, she only had a few people that she could really rely on as she went through this incredibly stressful process, just like everybody else, while also having a lot of people in the group just not like you for things. You know, some of it was in her control, but a lot of it really wasn't. I don't want to make it seem like everybody just had a right to be hard on Manon, bully Manon, because, you know, not justifying that.
More than anything, Manon sort of became a symbol of the true unfairness of the entire program through truly no fault of her own. Manon was scouted, trained privately. The execs didn't seem to treat her rule violations as seriously as they treated others. Manon didn't work herself to the bone to please the execs like these girls genuinely believed that they had to do.
We were told that what's going to influence this group is hard work. And I think that's so screwed to tell somebody. I mean, just out of us four, we are so hardworking. And like me personally, I haven't missed a single day, like ever.
She had an innate draw for both the execs and the general public that just could not be obtained by hours and hours of practice. Even though she still was not the strongest singer or dancer, she already showed so much potential and talent without breaking herself. Every day, these girls have been told that their hard work would pay off, but this survival show, this competition, was never about proving that.
But then fan voting came out, and I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated because I worked so hard. Like, it felt like my work just was like poof, into the thin air.
It wasn't Manon that was to blame. It was the executives that set these girls up to believe a lie. Adela, a day one trainee, was sent home in round one.
It's really unfair to send me home in the first elimination. And I've been here from the start, and I've been like working my ass off. So if it was really fair, then I feel like I would have gone further along and I would have reaped the benefits more. Every month I try to work on what they tell me to, and then nothing. It never sticks. They never like it. And it's just, I was like, I just don't think this is for me.
I think if Adela had been allowed to sing in the first mission, not just dance, she probably would have stayed another round. But I also, to be quite honest, don't think Adela really ever had a chance at being a part of the group. That has nothing to do with her talent and everything to do with things pretty much beyond her control. Adela is so visually striking, and if you see her in her solo career now, I recommend her music. It's a bop. The alt look and sound that she has now just suits her so incredibly well. And as much as I love it, this sort of vibe just doesn't have a lot of overlap with girl groups, K-pop or otherwise. And in fact, the execs after her elimination say basically the same thing.
We see Adela as a solo artist. I think that was always something that we saw even in training and development with her. So when we saw the fan voting, we felt that they were seeing what we always knew.
But it begs the very important question, if they never thought that she was right for the group, why did they have her stay for 2 whole years? And the answer was she was there to be eliminated, a supporting member in other people's debut. It's not fair, and to the girls who were close to Adela, again Manon became this outlet of their frustration, that Manon was still there when someone who they thought was more deserving wasn't.
Hi, how are you? Yeah.
Sophia just gave me the dirtiest look on planet Earth.
Why?
I don't know.
Even though Manon was just as deserving and wanted this just as bad as everyone else. Manon herself admitted that she initially didn't dedicate herself as much to practice because she felt insecure about just how far behind she was from the other girls.
I need to hold myself accountable for what has happened. Having that lower skill set, especially in the beginning, I was like in shock. And I never felt insecurity like that before, and I kind of had to gain back my confidence.
But I think when she saw the public reaction, that was the confirmation she needed that she actually had a chance of making it in this group if she just put the work in. So once she recovered from COVID in Mission 1, She was all in.
I kind of hit a moment where I was like, where I had to like really think about this and like hold myself accountable and like I kind of realized I have to like work way harder.
Manal also worked incredibly hard to get to the end. It just took her longer than a lot of the other girls in the group. The public at this time didn't know that there was tension between Manal and the rest of the girls per se, but they did notice little things like Manal wouldn't be included in a lot of group photos or TikToks, and they knew that she was sick, which impacted her performance in Mission 1. But people definitely knew something was up when they saw the Mission 2 results. As part of Mission 2, perhaps because they realized that without personal content, Dream Academy was really boring, production decided to play some absolute psychological warfare with these teenage girls. Privately, each girl was asked to pick which 5 girls they would want in their dream group. The girls are visibly uncomfortable at this question, and they're assured that their answers will be kept private. But then, alongside the voting for Mission 2, the AI voice just outs the number of times each girl was picked by their fellow contestants.
14 contestants included Sophia in their debut group. 12 contestants included Daniela in their debut group.
Celeste, Ilya, and Manal each only received 1 vote. Brooklyn and Ua received 0 votes. And that's just outed to all of the girls, the public. These are girls who trained together, some of them for 2 years, and they are actively being pitted against each other for the sake of drama on the show. It was hard watching the elimination from the first mission, but the look on Brooklyn's face when she for a split second thinks she's safe, but then is told she's out after just finding out that none of her friends wanted her in the group.
Brooklyn.
This is me.
Oh, wait, what does that mean?
Wait, what
does that mean?
Why it doesn't say anything?
I think that means you're safe.
You will not be receiving an invitation.
No.
Sorry.
Even Tyra Banks couldn't think of a more cruel way to crush these girls' dreams. By the time they get to the 3rd mission, the girls are emotionally exhausted.
It feels like we've reached a breaking point mentally, physically. I think the girls are just done. They're starting to like question what is going on here. You know what I mean? Like, do I even want to like be here?
Lexi, one of the top contestants, just leaves.
Especially the elimination for Mission 2. That's when it kind of started to feel like the program put us against each other. It felt just wrong.
Even though her reason for leaving was partly because the program was pitting the girls against each other, and she voiced that at the time, on Dream Academy, the YouTube show, they just said she was leaving to work on her interests in music production. With the group being so small now, girls of similar ethnic backgrounds were being pitted against each other by the fandom. Girls like Ezrella and Lara, Nayoung and Yoonchae, Samara and Banal. Despite all of these girls being just so incomparable to me, like Nayoung. Nayoung was a very popular contestant and had the best voice in the competition, besides Lara. She was eliminated quietly after Mission 3 because she apparently at one point said to her instructor that she wasn't sure if she wanted to be in a group or if she wanted to have a solo career. We're given absolutely no context to this quote, let alone Nayoung's own voice, which feels very unfair to me. It's also weird because right after Nayoung leaves the show, she auditions and wins another survival show to be in a K-pop group. A lot of people think Nayoung was set up to be eliminated in favor of Yoonchae getting in the group, but I don't think Yoonchae was ever the person blocking Nayoung from the group. I actually think Nayoung was just there to motivate Lara and Sophia as the lead vocalists. Yoonchae was an all-around strong performer. She's significantly younger than Nayoung. Besides them both being Korean, they actually didn't have that much in common. Yoonchae isn't featured nearly as much as the other future Katseye members in Dream Academy or in the Netflix documentary, so I think that especially led people to think that she only made it into the group because she was Korean, as if she didn't get good feedback from fans and executives in literally every mission. In the end, the final group, Katseye, is Sophia, Lara, Manon, Daniela, Yoonchae, and Megan. And to be honest, even though there were so many girls I liked from Dream Academy, I think this group is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. For some reason, Megan never really got a lot of attention from the public during Dream Academy, but she's an incredible performer. She's bi, she's dyslexic, she's pre-diabetic. My girl Megan is going through it.
Girl, I wish I had a favorite book. I can't read. I'm dyslexic.
what more could you want? I will say it did bum me out when I found out Yoonchae was only 16 when she was picked for the group, just because I have this crazy principle that I don't think kids should be famous pop stars to begin with.
And let's also be real, Yoonchae gets to have some damn fun in a global girl group. So if she was going to debut K-pop or global, I'm glad she's here.
For me, I've never thought about I'll debut in America.
Yeah.
Because my dream was being a K-pop idol. At first, I was worried about debut in here.
America.
Yeah, because I don't have experience in here and I was scared. But after debut, we got to have a lot of experiences. This is so amazing. I would choose this way again.
But she is so talented, and she's straight up the funniest person in the group.
I want to have telekinesis to eat cereal without using my hands.
And this year we're gonna start with our baby. You're the first Santa for
Magna eats first.
After another year of training with just these 6 members, the girls finally debuted with Debut.
And I know this is our debut, but this ain't a debut.
Now, I'm very glad I listened to Touched before I found Debut, because to be honest, if this song had been my first impression, I don't know if I would have kept up with the group. The girls kill it, but there's something kind of Disney tween about this song that just makes it feel really dated. Also, Winol is the visual of this group, right? Tell me why they shove her in the back completely out of sight for 90% of the song.
They keep coming back.
And don't say it's because she's a weak dancer, because I know Manon can dance now. But if you thought we were done with people being weird about Manon, we were not. This is not uncommon for visuals and K-pop groups, criticism that they don't measure up to the rest of the group in their singing or dancing, but it has been especially persistent with Manon. And it's not lost on me that as a Black woman, Manon is already held to an impossible standard in a lot of ways. That if she's anything other than perfect, she's somehow undeserving of her spot. And once Popstar Academy, the Netflix documentary showing much more of the girls' behind-the-scenes journey came out, the Manon hate became 10 times worse. People sensed there was maybe something up with Manon during Dream Academy, especially because after she made the group, another ex-trainee made this really weird comment on Lara's Instagram.
I did comment that in a picture where there is a Black girl in the middle being Black, in the middle being Black, in the center being Black in the middle. So I never in a trillion years thought that people would think that I'm just being mean.
But in Popstar Academy, Manon was almost the central plotline of the show, which of course is a piece of entertainment that's going to frame this whole dispute as the most dramatic thing ever. Manon was attacked for her initial hesitation with the project. Lara and Sophia, 2 close friends of Adela, both had, I think, genuine frustrations with Manon and the situation. But also, can you believe they weren't perfect angels the entire time? Can you imagine teenage girls who are with each other 24/7 in a competitive environment that was not fairly managed by production, that those girls would have beef with one another? Never mind the fact that Manon, in the documentary, owned up to her mistakes. The girls all hashed it out, chose to bury the hatchet. At this point, years ago,
I think we appreciate you coming to us and expressing this, and nobody wants to have beef, you know what I mean? I feel like we want to work with you and be cool. I will hold myself accountable, and I'm sorry for missing classes.
in the finale on Dream Academy, you can see Manon holding Lara's arm and smiling. They're fine. And that doesn't even include the year they all spent, just the 6 of them together, getting closer.
But a couple of the girls and people on the management team, questioned how committed you were. What did you learn from that experience, and how have you changed since then?
Sorry, this is so dramatic for no reason. Yeah, I know that was a big subject on the documentary, which I found very unfortunate and I freaked out watching it. But I think it's also important because truth is I walked into this program with no knowledge. Like I've never heard about K-pop before, never been in a competition, never danced before. I just did not have that discipline and I didn't really, I think, know how things were working, and it took me a while to get it. But with that being said, I fully locked in. And I think I've grown a lot since, and I think if things were still like that, I would not be in this group by now. Do you know what I mean? So
We're doing something right, girl.
But people still want to vilify Manon, Lara, Sophia for things they said and did in 2023.
Lara, how have you dealt with social media since the show aired?
You know, it was honestly really, really hard, like seeing the response because we are so good now.
some of them don't give us enough grace because we're young women, teenagers.
We're sisters, because
We're
sisters
young
fight.
sisters. You know, it is a documentary, and to get people watching, there needs to be some drama, I feel like, and they amped that up and made it a whole situation when it really was never that deep.
I'm just grateful that Hybe lets these girls make their own social media posts because they couldn't have said it better. You may wonder, like I did initially, why Hybe would set up their own artists for online harassment in this way. They were executive producers on the documentary, and I'm sure they had control over the final edit, at least to some extent. And why did they allow this documentary to, yes, act as puff piece PR for their brand, but also kind of make the company look bad at times?
Have to create that drama. You have to create that competition. It's entertainment. And this is what the fans really want.
And it's because controversy gets them attention. You sympathize with these girls for what they've gone through, and you want to root for them. Even though people have been very critical of Hybe, the program, even some of the Katseye members, none of it was so extreme to actually make people boycott Katseye. In fact, it's done the opposite. It's kind of annoying because I know I've been PR'd, and it worked. As I'm writing this, they're about to come out with their second EP, Beautiful Chaos, and word on the street is they have 3 songs that are actually over 3 minutes this time. Maybe we get a bridge. Please tell me we get a bridge. Gnarly.
This song. Oh my god, that new beat. Oh my god, is this real?
You know, the first listen, I was a little scared. 10th listen, I'm like, okay, it's satire, but some of these lyrics are a chop.
Oh, we're in a session tonight. Gang, gang. Oh, we're going out tonight. Gang, gang.
80th listen, starting to grow on me, stuck in my head. Watching their live performance the next day, all in. Everything is gnarly. More importantly, this song reached 92 on the US Hot 100, which I don't think y'all even understand how big of a deal that is. Touch, which has 300 million streams, only ever reached 200 on the US Hot 100. This is the first time that a non-K-pop group has entered the US Hot 100 since Fifth Harmony in 2017. Plus, they broke the top 50 on the global charts with Gnarly, so now they're being seen with Pokimane, Leve, Doja Cat. They got a remix with Ice Spice. With how many times they said I'm the shit in this song, I guess I should have seen that coming. They are the first global girl group, and this feels like only the beginning of their success. Except they're not the first global girl group. Not technically, anyways. Hybe started scouting and training girls for this project in 2021, but Katseye itself wasn't formed until 2023, and they actually didn't officially debut until June of 2024. Hybe hypes up this project a lot as the first of its kind, but they kind of leave out the fact that in 2021 and 2022, there was kind of a global girl group and boy group arms race. Hybe may have scouted people earlier, but an even bigger company managed to debut their own global girl group just 6 months before Hybe did. As much as I just want to yap about Katseye and Lara's hoodie, I also need people to know about the forgotten global girl group that just doesn't get talked about enough, JYP's VCHA. JYP Entertainment is a staple of the K-pop industry. It's founded by JY Park, a first-gen K-pop artist.
Trust me, I was a student in college, majoring geology, so it's a journey.
I won't pretend to be super familiar with JYP's discography, but from the performances I've seen, he kind of reminds me of Jessie J. Like, he does the most in every performance, and I love it. In 2022, JY Park hosted America to Korea, or A2K, a survival show that was going to produce the first global, but really just American and Canadian, girl group using the K-pop method. On paper, it was literally the exact same concept as Dream Academy, a survival show backed by a major K-pop company in collaboration with a major American company to produce a group more catered to a Western audience while still having enough K-pop elements to appeal to Korean fans. But from the onset, you can immediately see some critical differences between the two projects. HYBE's open audition range was 15 to 19 years old, although a handful of contestants were also scouted outside of that range. A2K, however, was looking for girls 16 at the oldest and starting at 12. 12! That age range for a K-pop trainee or even an idol is honestly not that scandalous in Korea, but in America, we typically don't have like 13-year-olds performing at Lollapalooza. Here in this country, the land of the free, the only place we want to see a child working is on their parents' unregulated vlogging channel. And I gotta say, the Amish kids make a mean pretzel. On A2K, maybe it's also just because I'm getting older, but it is just kind of mind-blowing to see a girl who looks this young, a 12-year-old girl, getting critiqued by one of the biggest people in the music industry.
It's so nice to hear that because I'm not confident in dancing at all. But it's...
Obviously, you're not that good.
Or there was this one 13-year-old girl who actually trained at the JYP building in Korea for 8 months prior to the show. They kept this poor girl on the show all the way to the finale, telling her, don't worry, just because you trained in Korea, we're not going to hold you to a higher standard. Just for all the judges to go, meh, at every performance she ate down.
I can't deny you from your stone because, I mean, you're fundamentally so. There was technically no reason for me to not give you the stone. But I need more, Gina, okay?
But again, she was 13, so maybe her not making the group was for the best. The concept of A2K was straightforward enough. The girls start out doing American Idol style auditions. Because none of them have trained before the show, a lot of them get not great feedback. Out of the 12 girls who make it to the LA boot camp, 9 go on to train in Korea for 3 months with multiple performance challenges. The girls are then ranked on a combination of vocal, dance, star quality, and character, and the top 6 girls debut in a group called VCHA.
That is V as in V and cha. VCHA.
These poor girls can't even pretend to be excited about that name. Even though the competition aspect of the show is fairly formulaic, the concept of the show and the group they eventually formed was always so confusing to me. To this day, I still do not know if A2K was a show for Korean audiences that just pulled from a different talent pool, or if it was always meant to be a show, an eventual group for American audiences that just happened to come from a K-pop company. See, it seems like they intended for it to be the latter, like Dream Academy. JYP himself said, I wanted to make sure that they're not K-pop as far as music and visual. Even though they're produced by a K-pop company, I don't want them to be K-pop. I want them to be what they are. They're not born and raised in Korea. They're not influenced by Korean culture. They are talented kids who are born and raised here in the United States. I think the real answer is that JYP Entertainment probably just had no idea how to appeal to Western audiences because nothing about how they marketed the show or the group set these girls up for success in the West. Speaking very broadly, Western reality TV is all about the drama. It's why Great British Bake Off is great, but no one talks about Great American Bake Off. We don't want to see just a bunch of hopeful chefs hanging out in the kitchen having a good time. We want to watch them get verbally harassed by some British guy who can't even make a grilled cheese sandwich. It's why even though fans at the time knew that Dream Academy pushed the girls too far with the Mission 2 eliminations, it was still the highest viewed video of that series. American reality shows love for each episode to be more dramatic than the last. Not to say reality shows are immune from drama or exploitation. I still haven't forgotten the survival show that made 100 contestants dance for hours until their name was individually called. But it's really not the content of Korean reality TV that makes things over the top. It's the sensory overload edit.
Are you still being trained as a ballerina or not?
I actually just quit this year.
Why is there only five? There's only five. There's only five too. What?
Lots of repeating clips, captions, goofy sound effects. Even though A2K is almost entirely spoken in English, nothing about it feels like a show that was made for a 2023 American audience. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it does mean that there probably aren't going to be a lot of non-K-pop bands in America invested in the show. The age range, as I said earlier, also makes this group confusing. The final group that debuted was Savannah, Camila, Lexus, KG, Kendall, and Carly. All of these girls, when they won, were between the ages of 13 and 17. When they officially debuted, only Lexi was 18 years old, whereas in Katseye, by the time the girls debuted, Yoonchae was the only minor in the group at 16 years old. The age difference between these groups isn't necessarily all that drastic, but it is absolutely exaggerated by the styling of these two groups. Just visually, you can see that Katseye has a cool girl Y2K aesthetic, which yes, probably also is more mature just because most of the members are adults, but I do not think that the age difference or the physical appearance of these girls is even the main thing of why they look so drastically different.
I will give JYP USA the credit that normally the problem is that minors aren't dressing their age. Like, I appreciate that VCHA is wearing clothes that are age appropriate, but I will say there is still a way to dress age appropriate for a teenager and still look a way that a teenager would think it's cool. Like 13 to 17-year-olds aren't going to look at the VCHA group and be like, wow, those are outfits I want to wear. Like, these probably aren't outfits that the girls themselves would wear in their free time. And I feel like Yoonchae from Katseye is a pretty good example of trendy clothes that aren't super revealing or sexualized, but still, speak to what American teens would wear, which is what they're trying to market to, supposedly.
Savannah, one of the VCHA members, actually made it to the second round of auditions with HYBE to potentially be in Katseye. Girls like her and Camila easily could have fit into the Katseye lineup. VCHA has a very 2009 Justice look, and that styling absolutely carries over into the sound of their music. The same going for Katseye. Katseye makes music very similar to past Western girl groups like Fifth Harmony, Little Mix, the Pussycat Dolls. VCHA's music, it's fun. But it's very much 2010s DCOM with like a touch of broken English that sometimes makes its way into K-pop. The market that listens to DCOM music is maybe 6 to 10 years old. And actually that number keeps shrinking because how is anyone in middle school going to take you seriously if you're listening to music for babies? You're supposed to be harassing overworked Sephora employees, not listening to bubblegum pop. The death of the American tween really is tragic. The cutesy styling and bubblegum sound does work better in K-pop. I think Korean audiences just generally appreciate more youthful groups. But the thing is, I don't even think the music VCHA makes would have been successful if they were performed by an actual K-pop group. No matter how talented the girls were, their music was just kind of soulless. So while VCHA saw moderate success at their debut, they were absolutely stuck in a place where they were too Western for K-pop and far too K-pop for American audiences. Yes, they opened for Twice in a huge arena tour, which is something K-pop groups don't usually have, and they promoted constantly on Korean television. But they were far from the next big thing, despite being a group formed by one of the pillars of the industry. JYP has been around long before BTS was smooth like butter. But with groups like Islet, LE SSERAFIM, Katseye being so heavily pushed on TikTok, they were seeing success that JYP simply could not replicate. And I feel like it must have been so weird for the VCHA members to see Katseye come out and just out the gate go viral, be touted as the global girl group, often thought of as the first global girl group, even though VCHA had beat them to the punch by over 6 months. And the thing is, even when JYP groups are successful, like Twice or ITZY, JYP Entertainment is infamously bad at marketing. They love to throw their groups in the basement and forget all about them. The fall off of ITZY after Sneakers will be studied in AP World History one day, I tell you. Just a few months after VCHA's debut, things started to take a turn for the worse. In March of 2024, less than 2 months after their debut, Kaylee, the youngest member, then 14 years old, went on hiatus. Since that time, Kaylee has not made a single public appearance, promoted alongside the rest of the group, or been active on her social media. Even though VCHA has over 500 videos on their YouTube channel, their last video was posted in April of 2024. Their last short was in May of 2024. Their last public performance was all the way back in March of 2024. In August of 2024, VCHA was scheduled to perform at Lollapalooza, an absolute staple music festival in the Western market. It still wasn't clear how good of an idea this was to me. I mean, the girls would be significantly younger than the vast majority of people actually in attendance at the festival. Not to mention, Lollapalooza sets are, I think, 45 minutes long, and they only have like a 20-minute discography. But still, this seemed like a genuine attempt on JYP's part to compete with Katseye's rise. But then just days before the festival, VCHA announced that they would be pulling out of the festival due to unforeseen circumstances. Other than a few birthday posts, VCHA's social media has remained completely inactive. In November of 2024, JYP himself just randomly dropped that the group was indeed scheduled for a full year of activities in 2025. But just 3 weeks after JYP made this statement, 17-year-old VCHA member KG announced that not only was she leaving the group, but she was filing a lawsuit against JYP USA for multiple allegations ranging from breach of contract, child labor law violations, to full-on child endangerment. The lawsuit essentially chronicles her entire experience from the point she won the show and signed a contract with JYP USA. And the story she tells is horrifying. I should say that everything from here on out is of course alleged from the perspective of KG, as written in her complaint and later declaration, not proven facts. So just so you know, even if I don't start or end a sentence with allegedly, or in my opinion, or according to KG, that is just for the sake of brevity. Please do not sue me, JYP Entertainment. Okay, great. Immediately after the show, the VCHA members were flown out to Korea to begin group training. As KG was still a minor at the time, she had to attend online school from 7 a.m. to 10 before immediately going to training, which also started at 10:30 a.m. and would officially end at 7 p.m., but typically went as late as 11 at night. And JYP Entertainment staff told KG that they actually wanted her to stay until 1 to 2 a.m. or face consequences, because after all, that's how late the Korean trainees stayed up. The only time we felt free was at midnight walks outside, or our little time in our hotel room. We had to sacrifice our sleep just to take a walk and breathe fresh air. According to KG, one time she observed another member approach the staff and ask if she could take a break, get some fresh air because she was having a panic attack. Staff told her no, and said to her that she was being disrespectful and is going to have consequences for her actions. The practices, according to KG, were also beyond intense. According to KG, she was at one point yelled at in Korean over and over again to repeat a single dance move hundreds of times until she got it right. She was denied water until she perfected the move, and the hours of repetition caused her to tear a tendon in her shoulder, which she would still need to practice with. In another instance, KG claims that she was forced to sing despite having laryngitis and was scolded for not taking good enough care of her health. The girls were also supposedly forced to eat only small salads, sometimes not even getting that, during hours-long intense rehearsals. The intense dieting, in KG's opinion, led one of the members to develop an eating disorder, which was not taken seriously by the staff, who said eating disorders were common. This member eventually attempted suicide. KG claims that the girls were told to lie to their welfare advocate and say that the girl had actually just went home to be with her family. This welfare advocate was someone who was supposed to make sure the girls were not worked beyond California labor laws for minors and advocate for their safety, because according to the contract between her and JYP USA, they did have to adhere to California labor law. According to KG, although they initially had an advocate who pushed for fair treatment, that advocate was quickly replaced by a different man who was frequently absent from practices, meaning the girls were completely unsupervised when KG stated the worst abuses would occur. While they were in this intense training program in Korea, KG's lawyer, who was referred to her by JYP, and JYP's legal team went before a California court to approve KG's employment contract. Most contracts don't need court approval, but there are limited circumstances, like say children in the entertainment industry, where it's legally required because there is a real precedent and danger of child exploitation. And not to say too many nice things about the US, but child labor laws are actually one of the few things that the US takes especially seriously. KG claimed that she herself was not given enough time to review the contract with her attorney and was instead asked to sign multiple documents blindly, including contracts that were written in Korean, a language she can't read. In that contract, it stated that while KG was entitled to a base salary and net revenue from things like streaming, appearances, and sponsorships, JYP would be able to deduct certain expenses they incurred, such as the cost to train her, their hair and wardrobe, and most notably the cost of the group home JYP USA rented and managed for them in Los Angeles. This sort of model is not uncommon in the K-pop industry, and even Western music labels typically limit your profit shares until you make back their investment costs. But KG supposedly had little to no understanding of how this compensation would work in actuality. According to her, she only received $500 a week for somewhere between 60 to 80 hours of work each week, which, if true, is far below the California minimum wage. KG was also highly encouraged to live in a home with the rest of the girls, a $2.5 million mansion rented by JYP USA. By the end of her time with VCHA, KG supposedly owed more than $500,000 in company expenses, including the rent for this giant LA home they were asked to stay in. Not to mention that if she breached the contract, like say leaving the group early and starting a solo career, the company would be entitled to another pretty large fee, liquidated damages, which these types of poison pill clauses are generally disfavored in California, I would imagine, especially with minors being involved. So how this particular clause got approved by the court honestly isn't clear to me, but that's just me speculating. But most disturbingly, KG alleged that despite a clause in the contract, which specifically stated that there were no hidden cameras in the group home, that this was meant to be their private residence, KG discovered what she believes to be a hidden camera in the dining room, which was monitoring all of their food intake. KG says that she began to suspect this when staff members would at times mention one of the girls making a late night meal, even though this would have been long after all of the staff had gone home. KG also publicly posted her declaration in a Google Drive, which included dozens of screenshots of text messages and photos supporting her allegations of mistreatment in the complaint. JYP USA did publicly respond to the lawsuit, stating in May of 2024, KG left the group residence and initiated discussions through her legal representatives. In response, we temporarily suspended VCHA's planned activities and engaged in extensive discussions with KG's representatives to explore potential resolutions. However, recently, we have not received any responses from KG's representatives, leaving our legal representatives awaiting further communication. We deeply regret KG's decision to file a lawsuit and make unilateral public statements containing false and exaggerated claims. This action has caused significant harm to the other members of VCHA and JYP USA, who have been working diligently on their upcoming album and projects for early 2025. It's also worth noting that so far none of the other VCHA members have said anything publicly. As of right now, JYP and KG are currently arguing in court over whether this lawsuit should stay in court or be settled by private arbitration. Arbitration is a dispute resolution process where a neutral third party resolves the complaint totally outside of the court process. Unlike court, arbitration is usually confidential, it's faster, usually cheaper, and the decision is final. So there's no way to appeal a decision if you think it was unfairly decided. Companies love to put arbitration clauses into consumer and employee contracts. Yes, because it's faster and cheaper than litigation, but also, in my opinion, because the results are very much skewed in their favor. Reports comparing the outcomes of arbitration versus litigation show that arbitration is overwhelmingly better for the companies. Companies are usually the ones who are writing the contract, who select the arbitrator in the first place, and studies consistently show that arbitrators are far less likely to find in favor of the consumer or employee, and when they do, the financial award they receive is usually 50% of what they would have gotten had they gone to a jury trial. Also, when a court case is decided, it sets a precedent. So if KG got her day in court and she won, other people who experienced similar treatment would have a much stronger case against companies like JYP. And this would probably force JYP and companies like them to meaningfully change their practices. Because arbitration is private, there is no such precedent. In KG's contract with JYP USA, which she signed, there was a mandatory arbitration clause. Generally, even if the situation seems really unfair, if a court sees that parties agree to arbitration, they're just going to dismiss the case and move it to arbitration. Because there is this general legal principle that, the things you agreed to in writing should mean something, especially when that makes the court's job easier. This month, however, KG's legal team is arguing that because hidden cameras were explicitly called out in the contract, that hidden cameras wouldn't be used, that JYP USA committed fraud if they did use a hidden camera, and if that contract is fraudulent, they don't have to follow the contract's rule for arbitration. To be clear, they are not looking at the hidden camera issue as a moral one, whether it's an invasion of privacy, just on this very narrow technical legal issue. We'll probably know the answer really soon after this video, but as of right now, I am not optimistic that KG will actually get to see her day in court. I believe her. I believe that she has a case on at least some of the things in her complaint, but it is just so rare for an employee, or I believe she's an independent contractor, to get out of an arbitration clause like this.
Since I've recorded this, JYP has also put out their own legal declaration. They've included some of the hearing testimony, and I am even more sure that KG's case just isn't going to go anywhere. And simply put, it's because she has a bad lawyer, in my opinion. I actually looked into it. He's not even an entertainment lawyer at all. I think he might be a family friend. But in JYP USA's response, they dispute some of the factual characterizations. They point to just how involved everybody, including the parents, were in negotiating the entertainment contract, and basically emphasizing, as I mentioned earlier, that not reading a contract is not an excuse to get out of things that you are bound to, and that a court ultimately did approve. And I do think that that is their hardest workaround, is that most contracts don't get approved by a court, and this one did. They also dispute the whole hidden camera thing. They submitted the handbook that lights up the security system, and in that handbook, it shows that the camera feature that KG saw is only ever used to take pictures when someone is punching in the security system, or the security system is triggered and someone's breaking in and they want to capture someone breaking in. It's not like a remote access hidden camera thing that KG's attorney was painting it to be. And of course, it doesn't mean that there weren't other hidden cameras, but that's how KG's lawyer presented it in her initial findings. So that is a really big problem for their argument, which is also unfortunately not that strong of an argument to begin with, because courts don't usually want to just throw out the entire contract just because one part of the contract is shady. I'm sure even as I'm editing this, we're going to hear more news in the next couple of days. But as I'm recording this right now, I am not really hopeful about KG's case, and I feel even more strongly about that after reading through JYP's arguments, which I do just think are stronger and more coherent.
While the fan reaction to KG's lawsuit was overwhelmingly in support of her, there was also a common undercurrent to the criticism that I saw, that KG, as an American teenager, simply couldn't handle the standard K-pop method, that it was her own responsibility, and more so her mom's personal responsibility, to understand what she was getting into, and that she doesn't get to just walk away because it's tougher than she thought it was going to be.
I've seen a lot of comparisons to Olympic athletes, for example. Like, Olympic athletes go through crazy, rigorous training schedules on very strict diets, but we all understand that that's kind of the level of training and dedication it takes to achieve that level of athleticism. And couldn't you say that it's the same in the K-pop industry, that this is just what it takes to produce the results that you want? And shouldn't all of these children just sort of put in the work? Get over it. And I think the key difference between a teenage Olympic athlete and a teenage pop star is that normally an athlete who is working to be an Olympian is still doing that of their own volition. These teenagers are in contracts with a company where they can't meaningfully say no when they're being pushed harder and harder and harder to work beyond their limits. And I would also say, I don't know this for sure, obviously, because it's all alleged, but like the working through injuries and things, that's not something that, say, an athlete would usually do. Like, their rest and their overall health would still be prioritized in that instance because their body is their instrument. And the same goes for these K-pop idols. So that's just something I hear a lot when people want to argue about this. And that's just not a convincing argument to me.
I do think there is criticism to be had, not really at KG, more so KG's mom, for how this lawsuit came about and the things in it, because she did allow her 15-year-old child to do intense months-long training in a foreign country without her supervision. I also think that even though KG seems to have experienced some level of trauma in her own right, I don't think it was appropriate to allege the mental health crisis of the other members, even if she didn't name them in the lawsuit. Because the sad thing is, even though they didn't name that member, fans still made an effort to find out who it was, when it was never anyone's business but that teenage girl. And I would ask that no one in the comments try and speculate about who that member was, because again, it's none of our business, and these are very young kids. I will say that even if longer hours and higher productivity is the cultural norm in Korea, in the K-pop industry, crazy opinion, child abuse just shouldn't be the norm or acceptable anywhere.
I would say what's most important to me right now is working hard and being a good person so that I can I don't know how to say it, so that I can like be a positive influence to like the people around me and also in my work, in the music and everything that I do. A year from now, how old would I be? 17. I want to see VCHA maybe on tour and me being healthy and happy.
When KG won A2K, one of the things JY Park himself noted about her was her dedication to improve herself.
KG received a remarkable compliment from JY Park, who praised her excellent command over expressing emotions, showcasing her relentless work ethic.
I was really worried from the start because I had a lot to improve on. But there was hope that ran inside of me to determine me that I can do it. And so to be here, it's really taught me a lesson in life that no matter how hard things can be, if you work hard, you can do it. I promise to continue to work hard and improve so that we can have a good debut.
They showed her staying late after practice to perfect dance moves. When they called her name, she promised that she would continue to work hard to support the team. KG was one of the least skilled dancers in A2K when she started, but she was able to debut in a group doing K-pop level choreography as if she had been dancing for years. Just making it from A2K all the way to debut, that could not have happened without hard work from all of those girls. But hard work is not an excuse to deny children food or water, to constantly monitor them, to push them to the point of injury and still practice on top of that. There is such a fetishization of work culture in Korea and in the US, where you're somehow seen as only deserving of your success if you suffered enough for it. Sophia, from Katseye, during Mission 3 of Dream Academy, she was so sick with COVID.
Like, especially when with the turns, like, I'm like trying to engage everything so I don't fall, but I get really dizzy.
She's pushing right now. Yeah. Only Sophia can do this.
When she was on set, she had to throw up in between takes. The next day, she could barely remember how the day went, but she gave an incredible performance and became the leader of Katseye. What she went through, who could have deserved it more? Except what about Carly, who had laryngitis during Mission 2, but still had to sing?
Everything's really inflamed and like not working with me. And we're filming Mission 2 in 2 days. And I'm really nervous about that, but can't be helped, right? We have to keep pushing.
Her vocals were significantly weaker because laryngitis makes it really hard to talk and sing. But the judges didn't even note that her illness probably severely impacted her performance. May, another contestant who was eliminated in Mission 2, also was very sick with COVID and can be seen still dancing in a mask with the other girls. Marquise needed cortisone injections to perform in Mission 3.
Did it just happen? Okay, what do you need?
A little bit of time.
Time? Okay. It's okay.
It's kind of scared because it's tomorrow.
Celeste said that her neck injury was ignored by staff and she felt forced to perform through it. And these people didn't get a record deal with Hybe Geffen for their pain. Remember way at the beginning of this video, I told you about Dahi, an idol from Hybe who blackmailed an actor and caused Hybe to abandon girl groups for a decade. Well, part of the reason that Dahi involved herself in this blackmail scheme, despite Lee mostly interacting with her friend, was because at the time, despite having been in a girl group for over 3 years, she was over $300K in debt to Big Hit at that time. Now, of course, debt is not an excuse to blackmail an actor from Squid Games. I feel like that's a lesson we only have to learn once. But her story maybe indicates that there is a larger problem in the K-pop industry, in the music industry at large, where debt and mistreatment are normalized and can only be cured through such extreme measures. And so that is the story of Katseye and the forgotten girl group VCHA. I love how I manage every month to find something that's going to be fun, lighthearted, just talk about the girl group I've been fangirling over. And I managed to make it a straight up bummer every month. It's great. So I hope you liked it. Well, maybe liked it is not the right word. Found it interesting. If you want to see more from me, as usual, I stream on Twitch a couple of times a week. Upload that to my second channel. Also, I upload monthly bonus videos over on Patreon. I've also been doing Love Island recaps over on there. It's been a fun time. And if you aren't interested in any of that, that's cool. That's fine. You could, if you feel so inclined, if you liked this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.